I caught my wife doing something that wronged me. Soon I divorced her. She felt indebted to me, so she left with nothing. But by coincidence, I had a relationship with her younger sister. Honey, come back early tonight, you know what I mean. My new little wife said softly. As a husband, I must come back. I'll make sure to satisfy her. 6 a.m. My wife wrapped her arms around my waist. We were cuddling in bed. My wife was wearing a light yellow nightgown. Honey, don't forget to entertain the guests tonight. My wife said sweetly. Everyone says I, Songming, am lucky. A year ago, I married a young and beautiful wife. She is only 24, 6 years younger than me. At an age where she can still be juicy. Her figure is hot, with all the right curves. Wife, don't you know who I, Songming, am? You know I'm reliable and won't forget. I said with a mischievous smile as I pinched her soft waist. The guests my wife mentioned are her sister. That is, my sister-in-law. She is only 22, 2 years younger than my wife. Her name is Chen Yiyi, and she has a great figure. She is an excellent ballet dancer. I whispered in my wife's ear, Wife, do you want her? I really want her. Tonight, my sister-in-law is coming over to visit. I heard she would bring her boyfriend. Ugh! Honey, I have a few days left in my period. You better wait. My wife said sweetly, but with a hint of arrogance and fierceness. She chuckled lightly and nibbled my ear. I had already bought the ingredients early. In the evening, my sister-in-law Chen Yuyu indeed came with her boyfriend. Brother-in-law, this is my boyfriend. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu smiled sweetly, her dimples showing. I took a look. My sister-in-law is indeed beautiful. She is a bit taller than my wife. Probably over 165 meters. Very exceptional, with a very slim waist. And she is a dancer. When doing certain movements, she must be very impressive. Hey, my sister-in-law came to visit and even brought gifts, please sit. I smiled and accepted the gift. The guy is quite a handsome man, tall and good-looking. His last name is Liu, and his first name is hard to remember, quite pretentious. But I noticed my wife's gaze was fixed on her sister's boyfriend. Something seems off. As a man, I suspect my wife is interested in that man. With my sister-in-law present, I couldn't say it outright. My wife's period had clearly ended, but she thought I wouldn't notice. Perhaps that's part of the reason. Sister-in-law, are you tired? Please sit. I pulled out a chair and smiled lightly. I glanced at my sister-in-law Chen Yuye. 2 years younger than my wife, she is indeed more vibrant. Her small mouth is rosy, and her eyes are big. Her eyelashes are long, and her nose is small. She dresses better than my wife. Under her super short skirt, her thighs are round and smooth, sexy and hot. She is indeed a dancer. I swallowed hard. At the dinner table. Yuye, when did you start dating your boyfriend? If you hadn't come to visit, I wouldn't have known. My wife stared directly at that man. After saying that, she picked up the wine bottle and poured wine into his glass. Sister, I need to take a call. My sister-in-law glanced at her phone and said with a smile. Now there were only 3 people at the table. Seeing her sister was gone, my wife's gaze became even more unrestrained. She repeatedly scanned her sister-in-law's boyfriend. I don't know if she was being intentional or just careless. She even spilled wine on that man's pants. Oh no. I'm so sorry. Honey, there's no paper on the table, go get some. My wife secretly kicked me. I thought to myself, could it be that she's trying to distract me to do something with that man? I want to see what kind of play my wife is acting. I walked out of the living room, just in time to see my sister-in-law Chen Yuyi on the balcony taking a call. There was a slight breeze. Her clothes looked tighter. She even slightly lifted her skirt, revealing. The pattern inside was very cute. She is indeed a little girl. Brother, can you give me a few more days? I will pay back the money I borrowed. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyi's voice was hoarse. She seemed a bit wronged and on the verge of tears. It made me feel a bit heartbroken. Her calling me brother also made my heart flutter. Her light blue shirt was lazily tucked into her black short skirt. Her slim waist seemed easy to grasp. Her hand lifted, revealing her slender wrist. Her fair skin was as creamy as butter, making one's heart race. She must have borrowed from a loan shark. After Chen Yuyu hung up, she sobbed. It really made one feel sorry. Such a beautiful girl shouldn't be ruined by loan sharks. I couldn't help but want to comfort her. What's wrong? Ye, talk to your brother-in-law. I gently patted her back and asked softly. The dim light shone on her black hair, and she looked very helpless. Chen Ye heard the voice and looked up. For some reason I felt a stunning sensation, captivating. I was drawn in by her soulful black eyes. And those red lips seemed to be infinitely pluckable. Brother-in-law, I borrowed money. The interest keeps piling up. I can't pay it back right now. Chen Ye hugged me, her head resting against my chest. I wanted to push her away, but she held on tightly, and she was sad now. If even I, her brother-in-law, rejected her, a 22-year-old girl would definitely feel very helpless, right? Chen Ye gently rubbed my collar. I can't tell my boyfriend. Can you lend me some money? I will pay you back soon. I was taken aback. If I didn't know this girl was very serious, I would suspect she was deliberately trying to seduce me. Chen Ye, inexperienced in the world, would indeed make mistakes and borrow from loan sharks. How much do you owe? I gently patted her back and asked. Chen Yuyi's ashamed voice was like a mosquito. 500,000. I smiled. I thought it would be a lot. It's not 5 million or 50 million. This amount of money I have. No problem, brother-in-law will lend it to you. I smiled and helped her tidy her hair. Chen Ye suddenly beamed with joy. To avoid misunderstandings, my sister-in-law and I entered the dining room separately. Why is my husband so slow? Is it that hard to find paper? My wife's tone was a bit harsh. I didn't explain. I noticed my wife's hair was slightly messy. How could it be messy? And then I saw that man's flushed face. They probably just had some stimulating scene while I was away. I really wanted to explode, but unfortunately I had no evidence. And with my sister-in-law here, I was afraid of scaring her. After thinking about it, I decided to hold back for now. Soon my sister-in-law Chen Yuyi also came in. She must have gone to the bathroom to touch up her makeup, as she didn't look like she had just been crying. Ye, come eat. You must toast your brother-in-law well. My wife held Chen Yuyi's hand. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu was pressed down by my wife to sit next to me. My wife then swaggered over. She sat next to her sister's boyfriend. Xiaoliu, you take good care of my sister. As her older sister, I'm very happy and toast you a glass. Come. My wife stood up, holding the wine glass, and smiled. I let out a sigh. Looking at that wine bottle, it seemed like it had been spiked. My wife looked timid, but in reality, she was quite bold. Hey, honey, you forgot, you're still on your period, you can't drink. I'll toast on your behalf. I snatched the wine glass. Seeing this, my sister-in-law also took the wine glass from her boyfriend's hand to toast me. Brother-in-law, this glass is for you. I hope you and my sister have a good relationship and have 2 kids in 3 years. Chen Yuyu said with a slight blush and a smile. I also felt a bit dizzy. My alcohol tolerance is okay, and I hadn't drunk much. This wine might really be a problem. Luckily, I drank my wife's. Otherwise, who knows what my wife would do? Oh, honey, aren't there still 2 soups? Let's go get them. My wife secretly kicked me. I was taken aback. My wife probably wanted to talk to me outside. Indeed, there were still 2 chicken soups. Yes, I almost forgot. Sister-in-law, Xiaoliu, you guys eat first. I said cheerfully. Soon, I went out with my wife. My wife lightly patted me. It turned out that the wine had health water added, which was colorless and tasteless. It was carefully prepared by my wife, who had put in a lot of effort to get it. There were no side effects. It could only temporarily make men stronger. Especially for someone like my sister-in-law's boyfriend, it was best. Oh no, what should I do? I've finished the wine. You should have told me earlier, honey. I said in a low voice. I thought my wife was with that guy. My sister-in-law's boyfriend wasn't very capable. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu had complained to my wife a few times. Even that Xiaoliu was a bit insecure. He had never taken my sister-in-law. I drank and there was no problem. But my sister-in-law drank something problematic. That's why her face was flushed. My wife let out a sigh. Honey, if it doesn't work out this time, there will be next time, right? My sister won't blame you. I comforted her, holding her waist. She wanted to do a good deed. After all, my sister-in-law was a girl and only dared to secretly tell her sister, instead of advising her boyfriend to see a doctor. Moreover, if my sister-in-law's boyfriend really couldn't do it, seeing a doctor would actually be a better choice. Health water is useful once or twice, but more than that, it won't work. Honey, forget it, we can only see later. My sister can only stay at our house tonight. My wife shook her head, slightly disappointed. I was half convinced by what my wife said. My wife and I returned to the dining table. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu had a poor alcohol tolerance. Now that she mistakenly drank the health water, she was even more tipsy. My sister-in-law's boyfriend Xiaoliu quickly left. He originally wanted to enjoy the beauty, but he was powerless to do so. Now without the health water, he left even more dejectedly. My wife went to wash the dishes, and she asked me to take my sister-in-law to the room to sleep. In the bedroom. Brother-in-law, am I beautiful? My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu asked with charming eyes, twirling her hair. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu was indeed quickly soft, like a loach after drinking. She gently raised one arm. Her shirt slid down slightly, Spring. Light half leaked. Brother-in-law, you can't lie to me. Chen Yeye asked softly. She raised her hand again. It looked like all her clothes were about to slide off. I hurriedly pulled her clothes back up. The medicine my wife added to the wine was indeed powerful. My sister-in-law was originally so dignified. No. Sister-in-law, just sleep it off. I almost couldn't control myself. I swallowed hard. My wife didn't wrong me, and I couldn't wrong her either. I lifted the quilt and gently placed my sister-in-law into the bed. She was weak and boneless, her slim waist. Woo-woo, brother-in-law, why doesn't my boyfriend want me? My sister-in-law actually sobbed softly. I felt it was unfair for my sister-in-law. That man not only lived off her, but he also couldn't give my sister-in-law happiness. Isn't that just wasting her time? My sister-in-law is only 22 years old. Brother-in-law, do you think I'm not beautiful enough? I borrowed money all for that man, and he turned out like this. My sister-in-law continued to cry. I gently wiped away Chen Yuye's tears. Chen Yuye was naturally beautiful. Now crying made people want to protect her. I felt the same way. I comforted her, saying, how could that be? Sister-in-law is very beautiful, don't you know your boyfriends? I spoke ambiguously. I didn't directly say her boyfriend was incapable. I was afraid of hurting Chen Yuye's self-esteem. After hearing this, my sister-in-law smiled like a flower. Really? Brother-in-law, am I really beautiful? She suddenly hugged me. How could she not be beautiful? With a good figure, she was definitely a top-notch beauty. Her head rested on my shoulder. Through the thin fabric, I was a normal man and had a reaction. Don't do this, sister-in-law, hurry and sleep. I've transferred the money to you, and don't foolishly borrow high-interest loans for a man in the future. I gently pushed Chen Yuye away and advised. My sister-in-law's face became even redder. The health water made her feel a bit hot. The quilt couldn't cover her anymore. Chen Yuye kicked off the quilt, and her white legs were exposed to my eyes. I took a cool breath. I couldn't stay any longer. I closed the door and immediately went out. The next morning, my sister-in-law Chen Yuye left my house very early. My wife and I hadn't woken up yet. Did Chen Yuye have some impression of what happened last night? Chen Yuye hadn't collected the money. Was she too embarrassed to see me? Or too embarrassed to collect it? At work, I hesitated whether to ask my sister-in-law. I wanted to ask if she felt unwell, although my wife said that the health water had no side effects. But nowadays, those selling medicine only care about boasting. It's really unethical. They don't care if there are side effects. If my sister-in-law drank the health water and got hurt, that would really be not worth it. She's only 22 years old. Ding ding! My phone rang. Speak of the devil. My sister-in-law sent me a WeChat message. She first sent a message, then collected the money. Brother-in-law, I was just joking yesterday. I didn't expect you to really lend me money, so I won't be polite. Chen Yeye's voice was soft. That voice made my head feel a bit dizzy. It feels a bit like being drunk. My whole body becomes soft. So nice to hear. If I said that, it should sound even better. It's okay, little sister, if you have something, just find your brother. I can't say much else, but my salary is quite high. I can help you financially. I smiled and said, I used to operate excavators in my early years. My education level isn't high, but my skills are solid. I bought a few excavators early on and became my own boss. Brother-in-law, yesterday. I didn't do anything inappropriate, did I? Chen Yoyu asked hesitantly. Inappropriate things? I thought for a moment. If I had still been in her room last night, I might have really done something inappropriate. Fortunately, I have strong self-control. Last night, Chen Yoye kept shouting that she was hot. Her voice was like a feather tickling my heart. Thinking of this, I moistened my tongue. There's nothing like that with my little sister-in-law, don't overthink it. I smiled and denied it. In fact, last night, my sister-in-law Chen Yuyu had a slightly arched back. Her curves were tempting. She smelled very nice, a faint milky scent. She even softly called out, "Brother?" As a man, I couldn't help but fantasize. Chen Yuyu looked like she knew how to take care of people. 10 men would find it hard to resist her. But she looked innocent. A complete beauty. My wife said that little Leo hasn't taken my sister-in-law yet. It might really be true. No, Yeye, don't think too much. If you feel dizzy, please take a day off to rest. I continued to advise. Soon, Chen Yeye sent a cute emoji. Chen Yeye smiled brightly and said, "Brother-in-law, you're really good to me. My sister-in-law is only 22 years old. She's very innocent. Her requirements for kindness are very low." I smiled. In her eyes, that incompetent boyfriend is probably also good to her. As an elder, I want to teach Chen Yuyu what good really is. A man's good is not like that. Yuyu, you need to have a better eye for people. I said softly. I didn't say it directly. After all, that's a matter between them as a couple. I'm just an outsider. Soon, the other side sent an O, followed by a tongue-out emoji. Brother-in-law, one day I'll treat you to a big meal. Is that okay? Chen Yeyu said sweetly. I quickly replied, okay. I chatted with my sister-in-law for a few sentences. I felt full of energy all day long. Time passed quickly. In less than a month, my sister-in-law Chen Yuye paid back the money I lent her. She's really capable. But it's earned legally. She participated in a large dance competition and won a prize. There was a little prize money. With her fame, she earned even more. That night, she really invited me to dinner. I told my wife I had a social engagement. After all, young men and women dining alone should avoid suspicion. Moreover, the other party is my wife's younger sister. Honey, you go ahead, what time will you be back? My wife asked with a bright smile. I casually said 12 o'clock. After dinner, I still have to go to KTV to sing. My wife waved her hand. I was going to KTV. It was my sister-in-law Chen Yuyu who invited me to sing. I quickly drove to the restaurant my sister-in-law mentioned. Chen Yuyu was sitting by the window. The light illuminated half of her face. My sister-in-law was rubbing her forehead, slightly frowning. She glanced at her phone again, seemingly wondering why I hadn't arrived yet. I immediately walked over. She must have been worried about waiting. My sister-in-law Chen Yuyu actively pulled out a chair. She looked up at me. Her eyes were bright and clear, both clean and pure. Chen Yuyu stood on her tiptoes, her delicate hand pressed on my shoulder. Sit down quickly, brother-in-law, I really thank you. If it weren't for you, I might have really been ruined. Chen Yeye shyly touched her nose and said. I was pressed down by her to sit on the chair. Her soft fingertips accidentally brushed against my ear. It was ticklish, her fingers were very tender. If you treat me to dinner, brother-in-law, I feel a bit embarrassed. Borrowing money is nothing. I trust you, knowing Yeye is a good girl. I smiled and pulled out the chair for my sister-in-law to sit. Halfway through the meal, my sister-in-law's lips were red and slightly swollen from the spice. She stuck out her moist little tongue and gently waved her delicate hand. Her fingers were slender and tender. If brother-in-law, I'm a bit embarrassed. I'm afraid of spicy food, but I know you like it, so I ordered some spicy dishes. Chen Yoye slightly stuck out her little tongue, her tone carrying an apology. I immediately called the waiter. I ordered a glass of ice water. This sister-in-law, could she have feelings for me? She hasn't been to my house a few times, but the dishes she ordered are indeed what I like. She must have put in a lot of effort. I even feel that she resembles my wife more than my wife does. Isn't that strange? Chen Yeyu is both considerate and kind. She's simply a beauty of the world. Brother-in-law, I toast you with this glass of wine. Chen Yeyu raised her glass and smiled. She tilted her head back, revealing her beautiful swan neck. The neckline was a bit low. If Yeye, don't be polite, it's all deserved, but don't drink too much. I quickly took the wine glass from her hand. Drinking too much is really not good. It not only harms the body but just don't get drunk. I didn't expect my sister-in-law to have such a low tolerance for alcohol. Soon, Chen Yuyu was tipsy. Her body swayed towards me. Singing was out of the question. I also didn't know where my sister-in-law lived. I could only take her to a hotel to stay for the night. After dropping off my sister-in-law, I drank some more and didn't get home until 11 o'clock. To my surprise, there was a man's voice in the house. I listened carefully. It was actually my sister-in-law's boyfriend. What was he doing at home? I didn't go in immediately. Through the wall, I could hear the voices. That man asked softly, "Baby, is it hot?" My wife quickly laughed sweetly again. "It's all your fault, I'm sweating. You promised to cherish me, but you," my wife said in a charming voice. I didn't expect my wife to be such a woman. And she even told me something about my period. Wait a few days. Bah! Liar. I really was blind. It turns out she was saving it for this man. I took a few steps back. I didn't want to hear the mixed voices of that couple, but I wanted to listen. A woman who puts a hat on me, I can't keep. Trust me, really, I will be gentle. Just leave everything to me, okay? My sister-in-law's boyfriend continued. I tried to advise myself to stay calm. I immediately opened my phone to record. What a vicious woman. No wonder she asked me what time I'd be back from socializing. I thought she was being kind, wanting to let me in and run a foot bath for me. So it turns out it was all planned to sneak around. Pa! Shall we do it again? How about it? The man continued with a wicked smile. My wife chuckled lightly. Let's sleep on the sofa. It's not safe by the window. My wife's voice trembled. I was a bit angry. But I was still holding back. I can't let this woman take advantage of a divorce. My assets are all hard-earned. Unknowingly, I thought of my sister-in-law again. I don't understand. Born of the same mother. How come my sister-in-law is so good, and my wife is? Sigh. People are not what they used to be. You're not up for it again. Have some health water. You're far worse than my husband, my wife lightly huffed in mockery. She wasn't lying. It turns out my sister-in-law's boyfriend really isn't capable. It's probably why he didn't want my sister-in-law. Chen Yuye is still a virgin to this day. Then don't you still like being with me? It's not the first time you know I'm not that good, you little vixen. Why not give it to your husband? The man asked with a wicked smile. It turns out this isn't their first time. I became even angrier. My heart felt blocked. I wanted a divorce sooner. Who wants a woman like this? I, Songming, am not a garbage collector. Oh, annoying, I just like this kind of guy. Hurry up, or you won't be able to later, my wife scolded. The man chuckled again. Indeed, garbage matches garbage. This man isn't capable, yet my wife still likes him. A few minutes later, I heard my wife angrily say, I'm not done yet, and you're already out of it. So annoying. Should we go to the hospital? Always relying on big health isn't a solution. The man didn't reply. Probably too embarrassed to respond. Sounds of dressing began to rustle inside. I hurriedly tiptoed downstairs. This evidence needs to be backed up. One day, I want this woman to be embarrassed. I went downstairs. I checked the time. It was only 11:05. Still early, I could only go to the bar to drink away my sorrows. I was both happy and sad. Happy that I had seen through my wife's true colors early on. Sad that after the divorce, who would I live with? By the time it was midnight, I returned home. My wife was still awake. Honey, you're back. Do you want it today? My wife kindly asked as she helped me take off my clothes. I hesitated for a moment. Ever since I discovered this woman betrayed me, I felt disgusted. I also found her unclean. What she said was probably because that man didn't satisfy her. No, I'm a bit tired, I said coldly. I pulled my clothes back from her hands. Even her helping me with my clothes made me feel uncomfortable. Better to divorce. After all, she likes that man. I started to deliberately ignore my wife. I accidentally heard that man was on a business trip out of town. A few days later, my wife angrily said on the phone, Songming, what did I do to offend you? If you don't like me, just divorce. I don't want to live with you anymore. I paused. I didn't expect this woman to be more impatient than I thought. I was a bit angry. When I got home, I fiercely pinned my wife down. I held her head. I kissed her hard on the lips. My wife began to get intoxicated. The thought of divorce quickly faded from her mind. But I chuckled and got up. Did she think I would give in? Dream on. My wife stood there in shock. Get up, I'm divorcing you. You should be able to find a better man than me, I said with a slight rise in my tone. I emphasized better man. She still didn't know I had caught her with that man. I wanted to see the expression of regret on this woman's face after the divorce. That Leo guy probably doesn't earn much. Otherwise, my sister-in-law Chen Yuyu wouldn't need to borrow money. Moreover, that man isn't capable. I estimate my wife will regret it in no time. At that time, I'll release the recording. She'll not only feel ashamed but also disappointed and regretful. All right. Songming, don't regret it. I can give up your assets, my wife said sternly. She adjusted her collar. I saw the kiss marks on the back of her neck. She was with that man again yesterday. I originally wanted to persuade my wife to give her some assets. But now it seems this woman feels guilty towards me. So she doesn't dare to ask. This is fine too, let's divorce today, I said with a cold smile. Immediately, my wife and I got divorced. That night, I went to the bar to drink. Consider it a farewell to that vicious ex-wife. I received a call from my sister-in-law Chen Yuye. I didn't want to answer. She's no longer my sister-in-law. Why should I answer? Ever since I took her to the hotel last time, I hadn't talked to her. I hadn't even met my sister-in-law Chen Yuye. But unexpectedly, Chen Yuye's call was urgent. She called repeatedly, sending voice messages and calling. I sighed, downed a drink, and still answered the phone. Brother-in-law, can you come to my house? My boyfriend doesn't want me anymore, Chen Yuye sobbed, her voice low. Hearing her voice, my heart ached immensely. I didn't expect that once my wife got divorced, that man quickly broke up with my sister-in-law. I hesitated whether to go. After a long while, I finally softened. All right, Yiye, tell me your address, I said, patting my head. My sister-in-law quickly sent over an address. Brother-in-law, I'm a bit tired. I might take a nap first. The door code is 0105XX. This is probably her birth date. My sister-in-law Chen Yuye is 22 years old, so it should be from 2001. My sister-in-law is indeed very naive. The code is easy for acquaintances to know. I had been drinking, so I could only call a designated driver. When I arrived, my sister-in-law was indeed curled up on the sofa. There were several scattered bottles on the coffee table. She was curled up in a small ball, breathing evenly. I bent down to gently smooth her hair. Her eyes were a bit swollen. She must have cried. No wonder. My sister-in-law was originally just a little girl. Yuye, brother-in-law is here, I gently shook her awake. My sister-in-law Chen Yuye rubbed her eyes and quickly recognized me. She couldn't help but hug me, her head resting on my shoulder as she sobbed. Brother-in-law, I'm so pretty. How could my boyfriend not want me? Chen Yuye looked at me with tearful eyes and asked. My heart ached. Her back pressed against my chest. Chen Yuye's body was a bit stiff. Even through the clothes, I was warm. Not to mention I had been drinking. It's not worth it, Yiye, I didn't lie to you. You're really a great beauty. It's your ex-boyfriend who is blind. It's not worth crying over that kind of man. I gently comforted her. I had one arm across my sister-in-law's waist. One hand gently patted her back. Really? Brother-in-law. Chen Yuye looked at me again. I wiped away her tears. Really, I Songming don't lie. I nodded. My sister-in-law suddenly giggled. Chen Yuye sniffled and said, Brother-in-law, you are really good to me. She hugged my leg, resting her head on my thigh. My sister-in-law seemed to think of something and suddenly got up. So, brother-in-law, do you love me? She hesitated to ask. I paused. My sister-in-law Chen Yuye's question caught me off guard. I was completely unprepared. My breath caught and I straightened my bent leg. What? I was stunned for a moment, then said, "That's not appropriate." Ye, you're drunk. Looking at my sister-in-law's flushed face, she really did look drunk. Unexpectedly, Chen Yuyi suddenly leaned towards me. She swayed unsteadily, unable to stand straight. "You're drunk, brother-in-law, let me make you a hangover soup." I swallowed. I wanted to step back, but I was afraid she would fall to the ground. I reached out to pull my sister-in-law back. Chen Yuyi patted her little face. She looked at me seriously. "I'm not drunk. Brother-in-law, just tell me if you like me or not. Be honest." Chen Yuyi pouted and asked. She stared at me with wide eyes. The breath she exhaled tickled my neck, making it feel itchy. It was a pleasant sensation. I inexplicably nodded. My sister-in-law suddenly cupped my face and kissed me. I immediately reacted. I quickly pushed her away. "Yuyi, I'm your brother-in-law. This isn't appropriate." I exhaled heavily and wiped my mouth. Chen Yuyi's lips were cool. They were soft. They were bouncy with a hint of sweetness. Chen Yuyi loosened her collar. "Brother-in-law, I already know. My boyfriend is with my sister. You're divorced now, so you're not my brother-in-law anymore." Chen Yuyi clenched her little fist. I was stunned. So, my sister-in-law knew. No wonder she was so sad. Who wouldn't be upset about a cheating boyfriend? But the one who cheated was her own sister. "Songming, do you hate my sister in your heart?" Chen Yuyi wrapped her arms around my neck, straddling my legs. The posture was ambiguous. If my sister-in-law Chen Yuyi disregarded everything and pressed closer. She actively blocked my dry lips. My sister-in-law was blushing furiously. I couldn't help but nod. Chen Yuyi looked up at me. "I give myself to you, brother-in-law, can you not blame my sister?" I hesitated a bit. If this was some kind of compensation. I actually didn't need it. "Brother-in-law, you know, last time you lent me money, I decided on you. You're a good man. Really, I love you." Chen Yuyi continued. The faint blush on her cheeks had already spread to her neck. It even seemed to flow down her neck, probably reaching her heart. "If, brother-in-law, my sister has told you, my ex-boyfriend is no good, and I'm still very clean." Chen Yuyi exhaled like orchids and musk. I shook my head, then nodded. If Chen Yuyi was drunk, then I still had my reason. Chen Yuyi's eyes were charming. "I'm a normal man. Brother-in-law, what we're doing doesn't go against morals." Chen Yuyi began to help me unbutton my collar. I grabbed her wrist, trying to make her stop in time. My sister-in-law bit her red lip, looking at me innocently. "Don't do this, Yuyi, you're drunk," I said coldly. Chen Yuyi fidgeted. Her brows began to furrow. Her expression seemed to show pain. I immediately realized that I was holding her wrist too tightly. "Yuyi, I'm sorry, I used too much strength. Does it hurt? Let me blow on it." I quickly loosened my grip. Chen Yuyi immediately smiled again. Her gaze was confused and innocent. Her eyes were pure, making me dare not taint them. "Brother Ming, I'm uncomfortable. Are you really not going to help me?" Chen Yuyi looked up, frowning. Following her gaze, I easily caught a glimpse of the scenery of this blossoming girl in front of me. I immediately lowered my head. Chen Yuyu tilted her head, her tone soft. Okay? Brother Ming, I truly love you, help me, I'm uncomfortable. Really very uncomfortable. My sister-in-law was already very fair. Now, with a rosy hue, she was even more alluring. I was really afraid I couldn't control myself. I decided to refuse her based on age and appearance. Yuyu, you know, I'm much older than you. I'm already 30 years old. I don't look that good either. I said word by word. Chen Yuyu still couldn't help but get closer to me. It seemed she didn't hear what I said clearly. Chen Yuyu, I'm already 30 years old, and I don't look that good. Do you still love me? I repeated. I'm 8 years older than my sister-in-law. Logically, women are visual creatures. That's why my ex-wife would be attracted to my sister-in-law's boyfriend. Even if he couldn't give her the greatest pleasure, my ex-wife didn't care. But I didn't expect my sister-in-law to shake her head. Love. Song Ming, you're great. Really. Caring and gentle. My mom said that older men are more caring. And 30 years old is not old at all. Chen Yuyu said firmly. She suddenly wrapped her arms around my waist. Her lips came close again. I desperately tried to dodge. But in the end, I still couldn't escape. I breathed slightly. Chen Yuyu's deep and mysterious realm was right in front of me. It seemed. Brother, you really don't want me? What if I encounter a scumbag again? I'm such a silly girl. Chen Yuyu's tone carried a hint of grievance. Tears were rolling in her eyes. It seemed that if I didn't agree, she would burst into tears. Looking at the stunning face in front of me, I couldn't help but want to protect her, comfort her. I paused. Don't cry, okay? If you cry, brother will be sad too. I reached out to wipe her tears. I felt a bit regretful. Chen Yuyu was indeed a pure girl. Only a man like me, Song Ming, could teach her to grow. Nowadays, whether it's bad women or bad men, there are many. I really couldn't bear to see a good girl being ruined. Chen Yuyu, I will be responsible for you, don't worry. I, Song Ming, keep my word. I clenched my fist. Chen Yuyu could no longer control herself and burst into tears. I gently patted her. I tried to ask, good girl, do you want to marry me? Chen Yuyu nodded heavily. Soon, her face blossomed like a flower. Are you shy? I swallowed and asked. Chen Yuyu shook her head, then nodded. I understood. This girl was too shy to say it. No wonder. Her first time was going to be with me. Taking advantage of the moonlight, I began to act. Wife, shall we get married? I asked with a smile. Brother, I want to get married, Chen Yuyu said, looking at me with her black eyes, sweetly. I gently pinched her soft flesh. I couldn't help but smile lightly. What a silly girl. Don't be afraid, I'm your husband. In the moonlight, I saw Chen Yuyu's face turn even redder. She leaned her head against my chest, not daring to look at me directly. Yuyu, actually I hated your sister. But now I don't hate her anymore, I said in a deep voice. I really had hated her. But if it weren't for my wife's silliness, such a good sister, I wouldn't have gotten her. Really? I even doubted my luck was too good. Husband, I know you're a good person, don't worry, I won't be as silly as my sister, Chen Yuyu said weakly. She really was a dance student. The feeling she gave me was truly better than my ex-wife's experience. It was indescribable. If my friends found out, I don't know how they would envy me. I gently pinched her chin. Yuye, I actually recorded your sister and your ex-boyfriend's conversation. You can delete it tomorrow, and the past will be completely over, I said honestly. Chen Yuye let out a muffled sound. Husband, don't talk about them anymore. No. It's our time. Chen Yuye, husband orders you to be obedient, okay? Don't be sad often, I said firmly. She was always too weak, afraid she would be bullied. Chen Yuye gently nodded. Her hair brushed against my heart. She could easily ignite the wildfire within me. I gently scratched her waist. Unexpectedly, Chen Yuye let out a silver bell-like laugh. Husband, I know. Please stop tickling me, Chen Yuye begged. The next day, I went with Chen Yuye to get our marriage certificate. I also took her to the mall to buy a big diamond ring and earrings. As for the wedding, it would be held later. It had to be grand and lively. Later, I heard that my ex-wife was deceived by that man. Not only was she cheated out of her body, but also her money. My ex-wife didn't even dare to tell anyone. It wasn't until the debt collectors came knocking that she lowered her stance to ask me for money. I generously lent it to her, and she avoided being chased for debt. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sigh. By a twist of fate, I lost my wife. But because of the loss, I gained a better one, my former sister-in-law Chen Yi. Now my young and beautiful wife. Sometimes losing isn't necessarily a bad thing. In the dark, Chen Yuye had been waiting for me all along. She was the best gift heaven gave me. And I was also her savior. Husband, come back early tonight. I have a surprise for you. You've worked hard during this time, so I made you a nourishing soup, my beautiful wife said softly again. I was also becoming more motivated at work. I must return early tonight. Chen Yuye is waiting. Husband will be back soon.